Good morning, everyone. A pleasant good morning and good afternoon to all. Welcome to this second installment in the three-part market intelligence series hosted by the International Trade Center, Caribbean Export, and the University of the West Indies Sridhar Franfal Center. My name is Natasha Edwin Walcott, Senior Advisor at Caribbean Export in the Competitiveness and Export Promotion Unit, and I would like to thank you all for your attendance today. A special welcome to our facilitator, Mr. Abdel Latif Ben Zakri, Associate Market Analyst from the ITC, who will introduce us to market intelligence conditions and the market access map, tariffs and non-tariff measures affecting trade. A warm welcome to our SMEs as well, and to our students from the UESRC. And we are certain these sessions will introduce you to the wealth of information available to you on market intelligence. Last week, we received wonderful and thought-provoking remarks from the heads of the ITC, Caribbean Export, and the UESRC on our partnership and exploring new markets. We also know that at last week's session, we had over 130 participants joining us to learn about the Trendmap tool. And so if you missed it, you can view it on our respective YouTube pages. We are equally eager to hear from Abdel Latif and see what this market access tool can do. Of course, we all agree that market intelligence is critical for decision-making, and for this, we are grateful for the ITC's continued support in this area. With these brief remarks, I would like to turn over to Abdel Latif to take us through the next 90 minutes. If you have any questions, we ask that you post them in the chat window, and Abdel Latif will take them up periodically. Thank you so much, and Abdel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Natasha. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this second part of the webinars. So as Natasha told you, there was a first part earlier this week about Trendmap. Today is the second part about market access map. And on Friday, there'll be a third part, third webinar about export potential map. So I highly encourage you to register if it's not done already. So the parts are pretty independent. So if you miss the first one, there shouldn't be any issue, and if there is a question, as Natasha mentioned, you can post it on the chat. I have together with me Elgin Atakli. She is working also in ITC, and she is taking care of the chat. So this way it will facilitate the interaction. So if you see something on the screen that is not so clear to you, you can just ask it there and Elgin will answer it instantly. If the question comes back quite often, or if it needs more or a demonstration, then we can just go on the screen and see how to answer it. So without any further word, I would like to start the presentation. So there'll be a short, well, try to keep it short presentation on PowerPoint, and then we'll go live to see more how to use the tool. So on PowerPoint, there will be just few concepts and definitions so that you're more at ease with what you see online. So I'll share my screen. I guess you are all seeing it at this moment. So today we're going to talk about market access. So when we talk about market access, it's the conditions that you need to comply with to access the market. So when we say conditions, we're talking about custom tariffs and non-tariff measures. So customs tariff, it's what the duties need to pay so that your goods can be imported into the destination market. Non-tariff measures, as the definition or by the name, it's any regulation that is not a tariff. So all the measures that you need to comply with in order to import your good in a country will be considered as non-tariff measures. So it's all the regulations that you need to comply with so that you can import your good. So just a few characteristics about market access map. We cover more than 200 countries. In terms of data, you will find in Trendmap ad valorem tariff, specific tariff, tariff rate quota, anti-dumping duties, and so on, all the non-tariff measures. We'll look into details what's the definition of these tariffs so that you can understand them more easily when you go through them. There's a part about preferential treatment. So everything related to trade agreements, rules of origin, certificate of origin as well. You can do some analysis by region, sector, by measure. So all the tool is based on data that is collected by ITC from national sources when it comes to tariff. For trade remedies as well. For NTMs, it's a joint work between ITC and other organizations, mostly UNCTAD, another UN agency, and the World Bank. So as I was saying, in Trendmap, you will see the tariffs as they are reported. And the tariff as they are reported, they can be in 4 types. There are actually 5, but the 5th one, you will hardly find it. So the 4 tariffs that you will find quite often in Trendmap are ad valorem tariff, specific tariff, compound tariffs, and mixed tariffs. So ad valorem tariff is what everything knows, what everyone knows. The first type of tariff that you think of, if you want to import your good, you'll have to pay a certain percentage of the value. For example, 10%. That's the most common and the tariff that is the most used across the world. Then you'll find also something called specific tariffs. Specific tariff is not based on the value, but it's based on the unit. So it can be per kilo, per 100 kilo, per pair of shoes, per unit. When I say unit, it can be per bike. And you pay a certain amount per unit. So here, for example, you might have a tariff that says you'll have to pay $5 per kilo. Compound tariff, it's basically the sum of an ad valorem tariff and a specific tariff. So you have a percentage of the value that you have to pay, and you add to that a fixed price per unit. And then a mixed tariff, which is one or the other. So you take the maximum of one or the other. So we'll look at a few examples after that. So it can be either 30% of the value or $36 per unit. So here it's per pair, but it can be, as I said, per kilo, per 100 kilo, and so on. And then another information that is given by MacMap. So this is an ITC calculation, and it's called an ad valorem equivalent. So some of you might know already what it is, but for others who are wondering what is behind this Latin expression, if I ask you the question, what's the highest between 10% of the value and $5 per kilo? So the tariff in 2 countries, you have either 10% or $5 per kilo. What's the highest? So some people might say, 10%, it's probably higher. I say, no, $5 for sure, it's lower. How do you choose? And so I might let you a few seconds to answer the question. We didn't organize polls, but I just give you a few seconds to think of it. So in your opinion, what's the highest between 10% and $5 per kilo? And the answer is, you don't know, and you cannot know, because there's an information that is missing here. So if I just ask you what's the highest between 10% and $5 per kilo, you cannot answer the question like that. You need more information. And this information will help you calculate ad valorem equivalent, which is everything turned into a percent. So everything turned into an ad valorem tariff. And then if you have 10% on one side and 15% on the other side, then you can compare them. This is the reason why ITC and why MacMap will show you systematically the ad valorem equivalent when you have a specific tariff, a compound, or a mixed tariff. So as I said in the beginning, if you have any question, you can just ask directly Elgin on the chat and she'll answer it. So just here a few examples. So an ad valorem tariff. So if you have a price with a tariff at $3 in Ecuador and $3 in St. Lucia and $2 in Ecuador, both of them are exporting to the US, which is imposing a 16% tariff. Then the tariff will be 48 cents for St. Lucia, and the final price is 3 plus the tariff, which is 3.48. For Ecuador, you take 16% of $2, it's 32 cents. So you get 2 plus 32, which gives you the final price. Nothing new here. When you have a specific tariff, so before the border, you have a low quality beef, which is cheap. So it's $3 per kilo on this side here. You have a better quality, which is $12 per kilo. Switzerland, when Switzerland imports beef, they apply a tariff of $24 per kilo to this product. So here we don't look at the value, we just look at the unit. So the unit is the kilo here. So if you take 1 kilo, you add $24 and you get the final price. So here it was $3 per kilo, you add 24. So you get here 27. Same for the prime quality beef. We don't look at the value. We just add 24 because we have 1 kilo. So we get 24 plus 12, which is 36. And here you see the idea why you might use a specific tariff. A specific tariff will reduce in a way the relative price between low and high quality. If you look at before the border, the prime quality is 4 times the price of the low quality. So if you have to choose between the prime and the low quality, depending on your income, depending on what you can afford, you'll go for one or the other, knowing that the difference is quite high. In Switzerland, it's if you want to buy 1 kilo of beef, you'll pay either 27 for low quality or $36 for high quality. And then, well, the situation is a bit different because now you'll pay a lot no matter what, but the difference is not that high anymore. So if you're Swiss, you're going to buy meat, you say like, I will add, or you might be thinking that you will add just a little bit extra and you'll have a bit of a better quality. And by imposing this kind of specific tariff, you see that you discourage companies from exporting low quality to your country. And Switzerland is imposing that to most of the goods that are imported there. So a compound, so we said it's the value plus a fixed amount. So if the value is 80 euros, we take 5.1% of 80 euros plus a fixed amount per 100 kilo, and we get 5.35. So the price with the tariff is the 80 euros plus what we calculated here. Okay, then the mixed tariff. We said the mixed tariff is the maximum of one or the other. So here we're talking about shoes that are imported by Japan. So Japan imposes a mixed tariff of either 30% of the value or $36 per pair. And then here you have 2 examples of 2 different types of shoes. Branded shoes, $1,000 per pair. And then let's look at what's the maximum between 30% and 36. If you apply 30%, you see it's $300. If you calculate 36, well, it's 36. So we take the maximum of one or the other. 300 is the maximum, so we will apply 30%. So the final price will be 1,000 plus 300. For the unbranded shoes, $30 pair, we do the same process. We calculate both 30%. So 30% of $30, it's $9. Or the fixed price because it's per pair, which is 36. What's the maximum between 9 and 36? it's 36. So in this case, we will apply a tariff of $36 per pair. So at the end, the price will be 30 plus 36. And here it's the same idea. So you see that here the price of the shoes of the pair is almost multiplied by, is more than multiplied by 2. And here you add only 30%. And sorry. So there's also another type of tariff that you might see in MacMap, which is the tariff rate quotas. So these are a bit different from quotas that you all know, and so there's something in common, which is a quota, which is a limit. But if you talk about quotas, usually you cannot go beyond that limit. So if the quota is 100 tons, if you are within the quota, you can import a good. Beyond 100 tons, it will be banned. In the case of tariff rate quotas, instead of having a ban, you just have a different tariff. So if you're within the quota, so it's inside the quota, you'll have a lower tariff. So in this example here, if you want to export cotton from Australia, to the US, there is a quota contingent of 226 metric tons. If you're under the 326 tons, it will be $0, so it's free duty. And if you're beyond, so if you're over the quota, outside the quota, it will be $214 per ton. This is not per shipment, of course. It's not if you import a big container of 400 tons or a container of 100 tons. This is the total value imported over the year. So you need to know exactly how the quota is filled, so that you know if you are still inside or outside the quota, to know what's the tariff that you are going to face when you want to sell your good. So these are types of tariff that you might find as well in market access map. So as I was saying, the ad valorem equivalents, these are not values, these are not tariffs that are reported by the countries. These are tariffs that are calculated by ITC. So it gives you a non-ad valorem tariff, so the specific, compound, and mixed, that are presented as a % of the value. So when we do this calculation, then you can more easily measure the effect of the tariff on your product, because if you know the value of your product, if you see a percentage, you can more easily compare it, and you can more easily calculate aggregation. So we do that for groups of products. If you want to do it for agricultural products or for a certain harmonized system chapter, you can do it with ad valorem equivalent, but it will be more difficult to do it with a tariff. If you have $5 per kilo and $6 per unit, how do you make the average? How do you make the sum? It's more difficult to make the calculation like this without going through the ad valorem equivalent. So what I was saying is there is an information that is missing, which is the unit value. The unit value is taken from a Trendmap. So in Trendmap, we have the value, we have the quantity, and we just compute the unit value like that. And this is how the AVE, so ad valorem equivalent, is calculated. So you don't need to really pay attention to this formula, but just know where it's coming from. There is an abbreviation that you'll see everywhere as well, is MFN, for most favored nation. So the most favored nation is the tariff that you give to all the members of the WTO. So if you're a member and you give your best tariff to a given country, you have to give the same one to everyone. That's the basic rule. But then there are some exceptions. and you all know the exceptions. That is called the trade agreement. So if you're seeking international regional integration, then you're allowed to reduce your tariff, and you don't have to give the same to other countries within the WTO. So in general, the rule is the MFN tariff, it will be the same for everyone that is a member of WTO. There are still some countries in the world that are not members of WTO. I guess now there are 162, 34. I did not update this figure, but we should be around 160. So there are more than 200 countries in the world. So there are some of them that are not in the WTO. So when you see MFN in MacMap, this is the tariff that everyone will get. And the idea is to see, do you have to pay the MFN like everyone else, or do you have a special tariff for you due to an agreement that you have? So this information is given in MacMap as well. Yeah, so if you want to benefit from this better tariff under a trade agreement, you will have to comply with the rules of origin, so ROO, and provide something called a certificate of origin. So documentation that shows that it comes from your country, and because it comes from your country, you can have a better tariff, a lower tariff. You'll also see something called the preferential margin on MacMap. Preferential margin is basically the MFN, the tariff paid by everyone in WTO, minus the preferential tariff. So the idea is to see, do I benefit from the preferential tariff, or is it exactly the same as everyone else? So if your preferential margin is 0, then you don't have any benefit to go through your trade agreement. If it's positive, then you have to ask yourself, is it worth the effort to go through a trade agreement and show compliance and so on? Because it's not always automatic, and there is a certain process behind it that takes time. It costs a certain amount. So the idea is you have to face either 6%, for example, or let's say 0% if it's a preferential tariff. So are you willing to make the effort to bring a certificate of origin and show that your product is originating from your country to save the 6% or not? Some companies, they say yes, it's worth it. Some others, they think it's not worth it, so they don't go through the preferential tariff, and they prefer paying more and being and not being bothered by all the burden related to complying with this extra rule. The tariff advantage, this one is you won't see it on MacMap, but you have to know it because this is the advantage you have compared to other competitors. So you take the best tariff of your competitor, you take your own best tariff, and then you compare them. So if you are in Jamaica and you want to export in Canada, are you going to pay the same or more or less compared to your competitors? So then you have an advantage, or if the tariff advantage is negative, we talk about the disadvantage, of course. So we'll look at this later. So that's just a slide to tell you that there is a tool that is linked to MacMap, which gives you in an easier way and more user-friendly information about rules of origin and certificates of origin. So it was launched by ITC 4 years ago, and you have the many information directly related to the rules of origin, and you can compare them more easily. So you can see how much you can get depending on each agreement, because between two countries, there could be several agreements with different rules, with different tariffs. So it's easier to compare them and then to decide for which one you go based on the tariff that you can get and the difficulty to comply with the rules. For the trade remedies, I think we will skip that and we'll go directly on MacMap. So before I go on MacMap, I would like to check if there are some questions. Elgin, do we have any question in the chat before we go live?
We don't have any. We don't have any question. We can go live.
Okay. So as I said, Elgin is here. You can either write a message in the chat to everyone, or you can also directly send a message to Elgin for private question. So I might have forgotten to mention one point, and my apologies for this. This session is recorded. I should have mentioned that in the beginning. It's recorded and we will post it and share it on YouTube at the end. So Natasha mentioned it. I just would like to remind you here that if you don't want to appear on the video or anything, just put your camera off. So let's go live. So here you're on Market Access Map, and this is the home page where you arrive. So I chose an example that will follow us through the demonstration. And let's say we are exporting from Jamaica, and we would like to go to Canada. And my product is the cocoa powder, which is 180610. For those who are not familiar with HS classification, I encourage you to look at the recording of the session that my colleague Pichaya did earlier this week, where she describes how the harmonized system works. What are the codes, how to use them, and what are the tariff lines, and so on. Because all the ITC tools are based on this HS code. So you have to know how they work, and you have to know what are the tariff lines. But of course, if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask it here. So I said that I am in Jamaica, exporting to Canada, and I have this product. So what do I see here? So I have this is the first overview with customs tariff. So I have two lines here. We'll see later why we have two lines. We have applied tariff, which is the tariff as reported. We have the ADE, as we just discussed, which is the ad valorem equivalent. So in this case here, it's reported as 6%. The ad valorem equivalent is 6%. So because it's already a percent of the value, there is no need for an ad valorem equivalent. So of course you have the exact same value. We have the trade remedies. So if we have some time, we'll just look at an example between Jamaica and Canada. And we have the regulatory requirements. So these are all the regulations that you need, that your product or the company needs to comply with in order to export from Jamaica to Canada. So we have measures that are imposed by Canada. We have measures that are imposed by Jamaica, because when you export, first you have to be allowed to leave your country. So Jamaica is imposing certain rules on export. And then when your goods, they arrive in Canada, they need to comply with the rules that are imposed by the importing country. So the import requirement, these are imposed by Canada. So here you have a quick overview on all the main aspects that you need to know, but you can have more details, and this is what we will look at now, which is here. So when you click access and then customs tariff, So you have the same information as the homepage, but more detailed. So the destination, we said we're going to Canada. The exporting country is Jamaica. And my product is the 180610. Okay, so I get these results. And as you can see, I put one product, one destination, and I normally should see only one tariff. So why do I have 4 lines? Because I remember the situation, and it's anyway written here. So I export from Jamaica to Canada, and the product is the chocolate. So it's a chocolate powder with sugar, or sweetened cocoa powder, not chocolate powder, sorry. So sweetened cocoa powder. So what you see here is the detail of the products that are within the HS6 code that you entered here. So here you have all the national tariff line code. So NTLC, National Tariff Line Code products. So here you have 2 different products. You have the 18061010 and the 18061090. So you have 2 different products. And what's the difference between those products? One is containing 90% or more by weight of sugar, and the other one, so which means less than 90%. And for each product, you have 2 tariffs. One is the MFN, so the one of the most favored nation. So the one applied to WTO members. And one is the preferential tariff for Commonwealth Caribbean countries. If you click here, you have the list of countries that are within this trade agreement. And so Jamaica is there, otherwise it wouldn't appear. Sorry, it's here, number 11. But if it appears here, so automatically you can benefit from the tariff. So you have a preferential tariff of 0% when you export to Canada, or if you go for the MFN tariff, it's 6%. So 6% is the tariff that Canada will apply to anyone in the world, so anyone that is within the WTO. And 0%, Canada will give this tariff only to Commonwealth Caribbean countries, so the list of 18 countries that you have here. So the question is, do you want to go for the 0% or do you want to go for the 6%? So here the difference is not negligible, I would say. 6%, you can consider it as interesting. So if you click here on trade agreement detail to see what you need to do to benefit from this 0%, because as I said, it's not automatic. If you want to benefit from 0%, you need to respect what we call, second column here, the rules of origin. So what are the rules of origin that you need to respect? Well, you can click on the text of the full agreement. This is a very long, complicated text with a lot of legal words. So if you just click on the chapter on rules of origin, you get a summary. And so this gives you directly the document where the rule is described. So then when you're here, you still need to go through the document, even though it's directly pointing to the right part of the document. You still need to go through it. And here I see originating goods. And then when I go through it, I see a good originate in the beneficiary country. So it's this paragraph here. So a good originate in the beneficiary country if the value of the material, parts of product originating outside the beneficiary country or in an undetermined location and used in the manufacture or production of the goods amount to not more than 40%. In more basic word, it means I have to put at least 60% of the value of my cocoa powder, 60% at least of this cocoa powder should be Jamaican. And if I put at least 60% of the value, then I can call it a Jamaican cocoa powder. And if it's a Jamaican cocoa powder for Canada, then Canada will give me the 0% tariff. So why is it important? Because you may import the cocoa powder from your neighboring country. Let's say, I don't know, Trinidad and Tobago. You may import sugar from China. You mix them both in Jamaica, and then you export it to Canada. Is this product a Jamaican product or not? Well, it depends. What's the value of the material that you put inside? And this is how it will be calculated. In the case that I give you, obviously it won't be Jamaican cocoa powder. So here it tells you what you need to comply with. So do you respect the rules of the 60% of Jamaican input? If yes, then you need to, just going back, sorry, just going back here. If you respect this rule, well, then you need to bring the certificate that that demonstrate it, because you cannot just say, okay, yes, I do. You need to bring the supporting documentation. And this supporting documentation is what you call the Form A, Certificate of Origin. And usually this Form A is filled in by local authorities in Jamaica. So quite often it's the Chamber of Commerce that is filling it in. So they need to, so each country has different rules to control that. In other countries, you need to have it stamped by the embassy of the country where you're going. So you need to look at what's the procedure that is specific to Canada. And here you have the at least the form that you need to fill in. So as you can see, this part here of going through the PDF document can be a bit tedious. So here, when you click on Find Out More, you go on the tools that I quickly described, which is the Rules of Origin Facilitator. And the Rules of Origin Facilitator is directly linked to MacMap. So they have the same data about the trade agreements, but here we present much more detailed information about the trade agreement. So I won't go further into this tool, but I can just show you is that you directly have the original text, you have the criterion, you have the document, and then you can more easily see the different indicators, so the different parameters of the trade agreement. So each part that you need to respect, that you pay attention to. And because it's presented like this, you can more easily compare two trade agreements between them. If you have a question, I heard someone using the mic, the microphone. Yeah. If there's any question, as I said, don't hesitate to put it in the chat.
Right now there are no questions.
Sorry?
Right now there are no questions.
Okay. I know I'm usually very clear, but I wouldn't like to overestimate myself. So please don't hesitate. As I told you, Elgin is here for that, so she can answer you directly. And if needed, we can just go back online and see more into details, some specific points. Okay, so as I was saying, the Rules of Origin Facilitator is a great tool, but within the hour and a half that we have, we won't go beyond this quick overview. So we were here looking at the tariffs that we face, and as I said, it's 86% by default if you don't do any effort. I mean, any effort to show compliance with the rules of origin, and if you do, well, then you can benefit from 0%. And as I said, the effort that you need to make to comply with the rules of origin can be costly, can be time-consuming. So you have to really put into balance: is it worth the effort to get the 6% or not? Okay. So I said we are exporting from so Jamaica to Canada, and these are the tariff that Canada will apply to Jamaica for this specific product. You might ask yourself, if you're an exporter of cocoa, what would be the best destination for my product? I mean, the best destination in terms of tariff, because here we just said Canada for the sake of the presentation. But if you are an exporter and you are trying to diversify your markets, you might be wondering, I'm already exporting, let's say, to Trinidad and Tobago. I'm already exporting to the US. I'm willing to expand. Where should I go? So the first step that you can do, and that was presented on Monday, is look at trade statistics. Who is importing my product? What quantity? What's the trend? Is it going up or down? Is the market open, or is it diversified, or is it really concentrated with some specific actors? That's the first step. And the second step is also to look at what are the tariffs that the rest of the world is imposing to me. So I'm in Jamaica. I want to export my cocoa powder. How much will I pay anywhere in the world? Well, there is a function to compare that, and it's called compare markets. And as it says, it will compare the tariff that you face as a Jamaican exporter of 180610, and you all know by now that it's cocoa powder with sugar. So here, what I did is I went to compare markets. I put my origin. I'm in Jamaica, and I export my product. So the HS6 code of a cocoa powder. And then this table here gives me, so I'll just expand it to everything. So the table here gives me different information. You have the MFN tariff. So the average MFN tariff, or the general tariff. The general tariff is the one when you're not in the WTO. So this is the tariff you face by default. The effectively applied tariff. This is the best one that you can get. So if there is a trade agreement, it will be 0. The preferential margin, which is the difference, between the MFN and the best one you can get, the year where we collected it. Usually it's 2021. There are some countries in 2020 and very few that are older, where we have more difficulties to collect the data, because as I told you, it's ITC collecting the tariff for every single country. So there is more or less difficulties in doing so. The number of national tariff line code in the HS6 given, and why is this not the same everywhere? That's because it's specific to each nation. It's specific to each country. At the HS6 level, it's harmonized in the international level. And then within each HS6, you can have one or more tariff line code. And that depends on I mean, that's a country specific. So countries that might use only one or more tariff line. So here we tell you how many tariff lines are here. And this is the average of the simple average of the tariff of each line here. So as you see, there is the table here. It's quite long, difficult to read, difficult to compare. You can, of course, rank based on the different columns. So you can rank by the MFN tariff. So the highest will be in Uganda and Uzbekistan, 60%. So if you're in Jamaica thinking of diversifying your export, Uganda will be a difficult market, because you'll have to pay at least 60%, because you'll have to pay 60% of tariffs if you want to import your goods there. If you want to export your goods there, sorry. And there are many countries with zero. So these are all neighboring countries that are giving 0%. You have also EU countries, and there are many countries. So that's what Jamaica will face when exporting this powder. So this is one way of looking at the issue, or looking at the situation, sorry, which is, I'm in Jamaica, how much do I need to pay for all the countries in the world? There's another question that you need to ask yourself, because knowing the value is something, but knowing how much your competitors are paying is actually even more important. Because if we all paying 20%, we all treated equally. So in a way, there's no difference between me and my competitors. If we all charge 20%, they don't have an advantage. I don't have a disadvantage. So we all, fighting with the same constraint. So what you need to know once you have a target in mind, it's actually to check what's the situation of your competitors in that destination. So I took Canada for the sake of the example. So I saw that when I export to Canada, I have to pay 6% by default, or 0% if I can benefit from the preferential tariff. So 0% is the best that I can get. But then the question is, how much are my competitors going to pay if they want to export the same product to Canada? So how's the competition in Canada? Do they all pay 0%? In this case, I don't really have an advantage if we're all the same, or is it more for them? And this is an information that you can have by comparing competitors. So when I say compare competitors, you compare them. So it's everyone is exporting to my target. My target is Canada. And my product is still the same, the 180610. And here I can see how much the competitors will be charged when they export to Canada. So you have the same table. The only difference is now you see how much every single country is paying when they go to Canada. Before it was how much Jamaica is paying when I go to the rest of the world. Here it's, I have a target is Canada. How much is everyone paying? when they export to that country. And the idea is to compare the tariff that you face as a Jamaican and the tariff that is faced by others. So remember, the best one that Jamaica can get is 0%. So let's see who else gets 0%. Display everything. And you can see that actually many countries, they have 0% or at least a very low tariff. There is another view that is available. It's chart and map. Chart is, I personally don't find it very easy to read. I prefer map. It's the same information that you get in the table, but in a map format. And here you can quickly see what's happening in the world. So you see that everyone in the EU has 0%. Everyone in Sub-Saharan Africa, almost everyone has 0%. Few countries in Asia. And the others, they pay between 0 to 5 or 5 to 10. So here Russia has 6%, China 6%, and so on. So like this, you can more easily see the tariffs that your competitors are paying when they go to Canada. I forgot to mention that you can, of course, have the exact same view when you compare the markets. So I didn't show it, but when I export from Jamaica my products, 180610. So that's the table we saw just before, but you can also have it in the as a map. So this is what Jamaica will pay when you export cocoa powder, sweetened cocoa powder. Well, as you can see, exporting to Africa is going to be complicated because the tariffs are quite high. So here you see 30%, 30%, 35, 30. In Uzbekistan, it's 60%, and Uganda here, it's 60% above. So that's what we saw before in the table when we rank by descending order. So we saw already Uzbekistan and Uganda, but here you have a better overview of the situation. So I see a lot of messages on the chat.
Maybe you can once again repeat which information exactly there is on MacMap and which they can find on the rules of origin facilitator to get it kind of clear.
Yes. So I was here. So we were destination, it was Canada, exporting Jamaica. Product was 180610. So yes, on market access map, what you have is really what you see here. So what you see on this screen is you won't find more on the market access map. So you have the full text of the agreement. This is a PDF of 200 pages. It's very difficult to go through it, but in a way, there's all the information needed. So if you need to search for the information that is relevant to your product, you'll find it there for sure. But going through a text is very long. You need like certain skills to know how to read this legal text. So it's not easy. And because it's not easy, we try to simplify it by bringing some chapters out of it. But this is still, it makes it, here it's a simple case, because as you saw, there were only 5 pages here. And because I went through it before, I have to admit that I cheated a bit and I am not discovering the document together with you. But when I open it myself, I need to scroll through the document and see where is the relevant information. So here here it's well done because there is a table and then you can click the table and directly points to the right part. But if the PDF is 50 pages long and you don't know clearly where is the information, you have to go through it and search for it. And this part is time consuming, it's difficult. And as I said, you don't access the information very easily. And because of that, because of the idea that it's not easily accessible, we created the tool that I mentioned, which is find rules of origin. So what do I find on MacMap? I find the full text of the agreement. I found the certificate of origin as a PDF and few information here. So lateral, country group, member state. So, well, very limited information. If I click here and if I go directly on find rules of origin, the tool is much more detailed. It gives you much more information, and it gives you really the relevant information that you need to know to evaluate what you need to do to respect or to comply with the rule. So here at the original text, you see that you directly have the relevant text. On MacMap, you have either the full text of 200 pages, the PDF, and here on the tool, you have directly the extract of 5 lines that tells you the right information. So you don't need to go anywhere else. And beyond that, we also add the criterion. So obviously it's a regional value content. There's a little box here that tells you what it is. And it directly tells you what's the criteria, what's the rule of origin. So here you just have like this information, which gives you the main point of the full agreement. Then you have the text that we used to create this criterion. So here it's not more than 40% of foreign value, which is 60% of local value. So this information was not in MacMap. The 40%, you don't have it instantly. You have to open the document and search through it. On the rules of origin facilitator, you just click on it and it's there. And beyond that, so of course you have the same kind of document, the certificate of origin, the full text, and so on. So that's common to the MacMap and the rules of origin facilitator. But you also have provision, so information about accumulation. So here there are a lot of technical terms, and there is an I for all of them. But really, as I said, we won't have enough time to go through them all. But you see, for example, it tells you if the packaging enters into consideration when evaluating the value of your good. So if I have a foreign packaging, can I use it to pack my cocoa and say it's a Jamaican cocoa? Well, here it says yes, the packaging is included, and it has to be taken into consideration. So voilà, you have more detailed information, and in rules of origin facilitator, you will know everything in details to evaluate your compliance with the rule. Whereas in a market access map, if you want to evaluate precisely your compliance, you'll have to look at the full text. And this is possible. It's possible, but it's much more complicated. So the idea of the tools of ITC, it's really to facilitate your analysis. And if I push further this statement, even MacMap, everything that is in MacMap exists somewhere online in Canada or somewhere else in the world. So you have access to all that, but the only thing is it will be extremely time consuming to do all this by yourself. So the idea of this tool is to simplify your analysis of the situation. And you simplify this analysis so that when you make a decision based on facts. So, the decisions will end up being like the right ones, and not only on feelings or on, habits that you have, because the country has been always exporting to a certain country. So we keep on doing that. Not necessarily the best thing to do. So if you want to take a decision on facts, you can use the ITC tools, and you can do that much more easily. Is there any other point again?
So far, not.
Okay. So I see that we have a little bit less than half an hour left. So one last point here is compare the product. This is a module that is more relevant, I would say, for policymakers or trade support institution, because it will help you compare the tariff between the products. So if I select here Jamaica to Canada, and I want to calculate at HS4. So it's calculating. And why I say it's more relevant for policymakers or trade advisors, it's because if you're a producer of, let's say, the cocoa powder, what is happening for live animals or what is happening for manufacturing products, it does not really influence your decision. So you're not going to change your product because the tariff is lower. You have your cocoa powder and you have to find the best market for your product. When you're a policymaker, when you're a trade advisor, you look at what is happening for all the products, and you have to give advice to the producer. So you'll go to the producer of cocoa powder, you go to the producer of manufacturing goods, and you tell them, this is a good option for you. This is a better one if you change the target. And this tool gives you an overview of the tariffs for all the products. So here it's an aggregation at the HS4 level. You can do the aggregation at the HS2 level. So at the HS2 level is the chapter level. And then you will see what are the tariffs at this type of aggregation. But as I said, if you already have your product, there is no reason for you to come and check what's the tariff of meat of bovine animal. It won't influence your decision. This is all for the tariffs. We can maybe just look at an example where it's not really straightforward, because Jamaica to Canada, there is nothing complicated, I would say. So if I access customs tariff, and I'll show you also what's the interest of a Valorem Equivalent. Destination, let's go to Switzerland. We are still exporting from Jamaica. Same product that we all know by heart now. So in this case, we're exporting cocoa powder from Jamaica to Switzerland. As you can see, the first column here is, so same as before, we have also two products. That's because Switzerland has two different tariff lines. And because it's national tariff lines, you see that the product here is different from the one we saw before for Canada. And why is it different? It's because, well, Switzerland decided that the 1806-1010 will be cocoa powder, sweetened cocoa powder, but with more than 65% of weight by weight of sucrose. And the 1806-1020 is the one with less than 65%. For the case of Canada, it was more or less 90%. It was 90% and other. So these are products defined by Switzerland, or tariff lines defined by Switzerland. And what do they say? They say that if you bring this type of product, you will face a tariff of 11.6 francs per 100 kilo. And so that's the tariff as applied by Switzerland. So this is a real life example. If you export this powder from Jamaica to Switzerland, they will not look at the value of your cocoa powder. Even if you have a super quality cocoa powder, it does not matter. What matters is only the weight. So if you bring 100 kilo, you will pay 11.6 francs, which is more or less $11. And then the same idea, you have a better tariff if you can comply with the rules that are under the GSP country. So the GSP, that's all the countries that are under the generalized system of preferences. I think, if someone can help me, I forgot what the letters are standing for. I think a generalized system of preferences. But anyway, if you are Jamaica is a GSP country, so if you can prove that your product is Jamaican, you can benefit from this lower tariff, which is 1.6 francs per 100 kilo. And then the idea is, how do you want to compare this to the Canadian tariff? Canada, it was 6% or 0%. Well, 0%, it's obviously easy to compare. But when you have 6%, how do you compare 6% to 11.6 francs per 100 kilo? You need to make the calculation with your own product value and see which one is the most preferential one or the most beneficial one. But you cannot do that with competitors. So here ITC does it at an aggregated level for Jamaica to Switzerland, and for all the tariff given everywhere. So this type of example, as I said, it's very common for Switzerland, and they use mostly this type of tariffs. Any other question about the tariffs before we move to the NTMs?
No question on tariffs.
Okay. So we said in the beginning, the market access, you have to look at the customs tariffs, and you have to look at the non-tariff measure. So it's the export and import requirement. So here you have the requirement of, I said, you can specify the importing country or the exporting country, because when you export from Jamaica to Canada, you have to respect the rules of Jamaica to be allowed to leave the country, and you have to respect the regulations of Canada to enter the country. So we'll look at the rules imposed by Jamaica when you export. The destination is Canada, and we're in Jamaica. And 1806-10. And these are the rules that are applied by Jamaica, and no data available. So what does it mean when you have no data available? It means that the regulations that Jamaica is applying to its exports are not captured by MacMap. Why aren't they in MacMap? Well, it's basically because we did not manage to collect the information, or we did not manage to code everything, all the information we collected, because it's coded using the NCM classification. And all this work hasn't been done yet for Jamaica. So there are some countries like this where the data is missing. You can have an overview of what is available in data availability. I don't know why there is a red line here. I'm sorry for that. So the data availability is for any information that you have on MacMap. So we have the applied tariff. That's what we saw just now. So you see for 2021, you have already many countries. For 2020, you have also a lot of countries. So on the tariffs, it's really updated regularly, and you'll have all the information you need to know. For the regulatory requirements, so for the NTMs, as you see, it's a bit lighter. Also because you don't absolutely need to do it every year, because the regulations, there is a stock of regulation, and the notifications. There is a tool that we're not going to talk about today, which is called IPing, that gives you the latest updates. But anyway, there are some countries. Here we can display them all. There are some countries for which we have the data, and some others, like Jamaica, which is here. So you see, the latest is for the year 2015, and there's nothing after that. So that's why it does not appear when I searched before for the Jamaican regulations on export. So it might happen that some countries are not there, and in that case, you will show no data. So of course, it doesn't mean that there's no rule. It means that ITC or MacMap does not have them. Does not have them yet. Let's be optimists. So I'm just going back to export and import requirements. Sorry. So before we asked for the exporting country, which was Jamaica, and we saw that it's not available in the database. So now we're going to ask for the requirement of the importing country, which is Canada. And what is Canada asking for when you export from Jamaica? So here you also have the two different tariff lines that Canada is using for cocoa powder. Why do we specify them here? It might be possible in some situations that the rules will be different between each product. So if you know precisely your product, well, you can just simply select it. By default, I'm using this one. But you see that the rules that are applied here, the rules that you see here, are specific to the product that we selected. So here we see the regulations that are applied by Canada to the import of cocoa powder from Jamaica. And what you see here, you'll have all the measures that are classified using the non-tariff measure classification. So you don't need to know the codes by heart. It's just here to rank them, but that's it. What is important to know is what's inside. So the first one here is the tolerance limits for residues of or contamination by certain non-microbiological substances. So I know there are 3 measures like that. And I have also 8 measures, restriction use of certain substance. I have 10 about labeling, and then you go like that, and you see all the regulation that you need to comply with. And so here you see there are 35 measures in total that are imposed by Canada. So what MacMap does is it gives you a summary of the regulation and link or directly the document where the regulation is a document that is mentioning the regulation or the measure. So, for example, if we look at the first one here, we have a measure about so tolerance limit residue. So what does the summary say? So here it tells you what's the title of the legislation, the summary. So what it says. So here it's a code that is taken from the how do you call the Canadian documents. The authority in charge of that, who is affected by that, because here we said we're exporting from Jamaica to Canada, but the regulation might be specific to Jamaica or it might be applied to the whole world. And here in this case, it tells you you'll have to comply with it, not because you're Jamaican, but it will be the same for everyone across the world. And then the link. So as you know, links on the internet, sometimes they work, but after a few months or few years, they die. And updating all these links regularly is extremely difficult and a challenging task. So sometimes it points not to the right text, but just to the website that is compiling all this legal text. And this is the case for so this was happening already before. Oh. So when you click on the link, you end up on this page here, which is a Canadian website. And then I search, so it was not working on Chrome, that's why I opening it on Internet Explorer. So here on this is the Canadian website, and then you have to search for that document that was referred to in MacMap, and it was the B0405 about cocoa products that may be processed, and so on. And here I went through it. B04. No. So B045. So this is the text. So this is the text directly on the Canadian website that tells you the rule for cocoa products, and they may be processed with one or more of the following pH adjusting or alkalizing agent. So I not very familiar with those words. I'm not a specialist of production of cocoa powder, but here it tells you that you can use this chemical product in your cocoa powder. And so you're allowed to use any of these, and the quantity, so you cannot use them with any quantity. It's in section B 1610. So then you have to search B 1610. So I'm not going to do it now, but this is the process that you are supposed to follow to know if you can use a chemical for Canada, and if you can use it, what's the maximum limit that can be found in the good that you are exporting. So as you can see again here, MacMap gives you the first step into finding the regulations, into checking what they're about, how many, what kind. So you have them all here. But then if you click to have the detail, you have only a short summary. And sometimes here the summary is not enough. It's not enough. You here in the summary does not tell you exactly which chemical product you can use. It does not tell you with which maximum limit it can be found in your product. And a little bit as ITC did for rules of origin. So it was already in MacMap, but it could have been improved, and it was improved by doing find rules of origin. We are actually in the process of doing the same for the regulations, and actually I'm working on it together with with Elgin and another colleague, and we are trying to bring the details of the regulation directly to you. So instead of sending you to the Canadian website and telling you cocoa powder is here, you have to click here, and then it tells you, yeah, but to know the limit, you have to click there, and then you have to click there. We'll directly publish the table with the product, with the maximum residue limit, and with the information about all the other NTMs. So it's a work that is ongoing. It's of course a bit more difficult than for rules of origin because of the variety of regulations. So for each regulations, you have to find the right indicators and then extract them from the legislation. So it's a huge task, and the tool will hopefully be available in the near future. We're still in the development phase, so it's too early to give a date. But hopefully in the next, not the next webinar in 2 days, but in the next webinar, you'll be able to have a demonstration of what it could do. I see that we are very close to the end. I'll just stop here. There are like some other parts that I didn't mention, like threat remedies. I think we can take the last few minutes for a few questions. Elgin, is there something?
In the chat right now, there is no question, but maybe somebody wants to raise his hand and speak up, or if there are still incoming questions in the chat, I can also read them out.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, there are still no questions right now.
Okay.
If I may,
Yes,
Natasha here.
okay.
While we wait to see if there are any more questions, I would just like to thank you, Abdel and Elgin, for your assistance. We know it was a lot to unpack, and this is for the firms. I know we've seen some questions requesting specific, that you would walk through the tool with specific products or origin markets or destination markets. But just to say that this was an introduction. And if you as an SME, once you know your HS code, the tool will be able to walk you through this very process for your product from the country of origin and the markets of interest. So we invite you to, of course, revisit the recording. It will be available in a few days. Revisit the recording, and similar to the information presented on cocoa to Canada, coming from Jamaica, if you're from Haiti, if you're from Trinidad, St. Lucia, wherever you are and you know your product, the tool will be able to do a similar example. I mean, this was to introduce you to the scope and the breadth of information and the tools that are available from ITC. And of course, we invite you to come back on Friday, where we will have an introduction on the export potential map. So with that said, I think there are a few questions now. Or maybe not.
Yes, so it's a very broad topic, but maybe very briefly, you can define what HS codes are. And then also, is there a way to view demand for countries or specific products? So we kind of captured this in this session, I think.
Yes, so the HS code, so HS stands for Harmonized System Code. It's codes that are used for products so that everyone in the world talks about the same thing. If I tell you I'm exporting qahwa, and Elgin tells you in German that she is exporting coffee, I don't know what's the German for that. You as a Jamaican will have difficulties to understand my Arabic and her German. So instead of using those words, we're using codes. And that's it. So the codes are hierarchical classification. So we even use 2 digits. You have very broad group. So you might talk like the HS01 is live animals. Okay, but then the HS01, 02, so the HS4 will be a live animal of the bovine category. Then 01, 02, 10 will be live cows. So the idea is to have a code with 6 digits that is understood by everyone. And to be understood by everyone, it has to be harmonized. So any country in the world will have the exact same definition for an HS6. When I say it's a country specific, it's when you go beyond HS6. So this is called then national tariff line. So the first 6 digits will be exactly the same, but then those that are following will be specific to the country. We saw a few examples here with the cocoa powder. So you saw that 180610 is sweetened cocoa powder, but then Canada has the 180610 and then 10 with when there is more than 90% of sugar. Switzerland has the 180610, I don't remember, it was 00, when there is more than 65% of sugar, and that's very specific to the country. But the 180610 at the HS6 level, this is common to all countries, and it allows you to talk about the same product across the world. As I said, my colleague Sam mentioned this topic in the first webinar on Monday, so I guess Natasha can send the link to everyone, or my colleagues will do it. Yeah, you all registered anyway, so we have your email.
Yeah,
so we can. Sorry.
I will repost it. I did earlier in the session, but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. So you will have access to the first session where this topic is mentioned in much more detail than the 3 minutes I used. There was another question, Elgin?
Yes, we have one question. If there is a way to view the demand for certain countries or specific products in this tool. And then we have a new question which is asking about the trade agreement. If you have raw materials and packaging coming from a trading block like CARICOM, if these are also counting towards these 60% local materials. use.
Okay. First question about the demand at the world level. This is, to answer this question, you need to look at trade statistics. And good news, ITC has a tool for that, which is called the Trendmap. And Trendmap will give you the information about the trade for all the products of the world, for all the countries. And in that sense, you'll be able to see who's importing your product, for what amount, what quantity, the trends. So it's called trendmap.org. You just need to register, but it's free. So you just register, you give your email. And again, that's the tool that was presented earlier this week. So the link that you just received from Natasha in the chat box will directly point to that tool, and this will answer your question of who is importing my product. It will also give you information about who is exporting this product. So who are your competitors, and many other information related to the demand, to the trade statistics. Yes, I can talk more about it, but just look at the video and you'll see what are all the information that you will find there. The second one was about the rules of origin, the trade agreement, and the regional value. So if I'm in Jamaica and I want to export to Canada, do I have the right to bring a packaging from Trinidad and Tobago, sugar from St. Lucie, and cocoa powder from I don't know, Dominican Republic? So the question is, it depends. It depends on the trade agreement. Some trade agreements, they allow that. So if Jamaica has an agreement with the Commonwealth countries in the Caribbean, they can specify in the trade agreement, you allowed to consider as Jamaican products that have inputs coming from any other country in this trade agreement. This is possible, but that's very specific to the agreement, and that's an information that you will find in the rules of origin under cumulation. So cumulation is a provision which allows you to consider goods obtained in as well as processing taking place in one FTA member country as originated in another. In other words, it means if it's obtained or processed in another country, and then I take it from there and I continue processing it, or I'm adding inputs in my country, I still can consider it as originating from my country. That's also the case for some bilateral agreement. If you have, so here the accumulation can be bilateral, which is if there is just an agreement between Jamaica and Canada, and let's say you import Canadian packaging, you put your Jamaican cocoa powder in that packaging and then you re-export it to Canada. Well, Canada will tell you, okay, you have the right to do it because we're between us. This is called bilateral accumulation. Then you have diagonal accumulation, full accumulation, third-party accumulation. So these are the type of provision that are set in the trade agreement, and it will tell you if you have the right to do so or not. So in the case of the Commonwealth Agreement for the Caribbean countries, I don't know. I mean, we need to check, but it's very specific to each agreement, and this information is given in this tool here in the Rules of Origin Facilitator. Is there any? You're welcome.
I don't see any more questions.
No. Okay.
No questions. Everyone happy?
Okay, well, thank you for your participation. So as I told you, this was recorded and will be shared online on YouTube. So you'll get the link if you want to look at it another time, together with the previous session on MapMap and the next session on export potential map. So I hope you learned more about the tariffs, about the non-tariff measures. There is a lot to say. Usually when you make trainings, when you give trainings, we take half a day only about the MapMap. So it is a very, very heavy tool, I would say, very broad. So I hope I didn't overwhelm you with information. Everything was clear. Well, perfect. And if you have other questions, you can just contact us and we'll be happy to answer them by email. So that's it for me. Thank you to everyone. And well, for those interested, rendezvous in 2 days, I think.
Exactly. So thank you again, Abdelatif and Elgin, and I know Pichaya is in the background. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. And we invite you to register for Friday's session. And of course, it will be another very interesting tool that we hope the SMEs will find quite useful as they explore new markets. So to you guys in the ITC, good afternoon. Well, I think good afternoon for everybody, in fact. So thank you again, and we will see you on Friday.
Thank you. Bye.